Hi there. Today we're going to be having a look at Word's tables facilities. Tables in Word have a number of benefits. The first one is they allow formatting data in rows and columns. Obviously enough, this is a table. This is often used to show the relationship between two different sets of data, like an amount and a time, or an item and an amount or quantity. What Word provides is very sophisticated tools for formatting this data so that you can choose how to display it in a way that will really bring your meaning across. You can change cell backgrounds, change cell formatting and alignment, highlight groups of cells by using different colors, merging cells, splitting them, and by manipulating the cell borders so that you can change the way different cells flow into each other and have different thicknesses or colors of borders to group information together. As a slightly more advanced feature, Word even allows a limited range of formulas that you can use to do automatic calculations. So let's open Word, and when Word's open, you create a blank document. The table menu is found in the Insert ribbon. So go along to Insert, you'll find Table. Word provides a number of different ways of creating and working with tables. To begin with, the most obvious one is by dragging the set of blocks that it provides to create a table of your desired size. You'll notice that it stretches right across the screen and you get as many rows as you select. There are limits to this. You can't go beyond the 10 by 8 table that this provides as a default. There's our first table. A second way, Insert, Table, is we can insert the table by manually typing in the number of rows and columns that we want. This is a very flexible way because you're not limited by the number of rows and columns in the little grid that Word displays for you. So if you want 25 columns and 15 rows, there's no reason why you can't have that. You can also choose how Word is going to format the column widths. So you'll see by default you have an automatic auto column width, but you can specify column widths if you prefer. Or you can use it auto fit to the window or the contents. At the moment there are no contents, and so on. And here is my table with 25 columns and 15 rows. To delete a table, you can click on the little grab handle on the top right hand corner and delete either the columns, or in the layout section, delete the entire table. The third way is to use the Draw Table tool. This is maybe a little clumsy, but it is a very intuitive way of designing your table layout. Begin by dragging the border that you want to use for your table, and then draw the individual columns and rows that you would like to have for your table. You'll notice that you can very dynamically choose the widths that you would like. This has taken us automatically to the Table's Layout tab, where you'll find the Draw Table and the Eraser tool, which allows you to remove a line that you may have added or to merge cells together. The last way of creating tables I'm going to cover in this introduction is to use text that has already been formatted into something that looks like a table using paragraphs or tabs and converting that into a table. To demonstrate, I'm going to use this carrot cake recipe. If you turn on the Show Hidden Characters option, you'll find that we have tab characters separating the ingredients and the quantities. I can select my recipe, go along to the Insert Table option, and you'll find Convert Text to Table. Because the first line doesn't have tabs, it's wanting to separate text to paragraphs, which would create one table cell per row, per line. We're going to choose tabs and OK. And this immediately gives us our recipe split up into quantities in the first column, ingredients in the second column, and because they were separated by tabs, some extra comments in the third column. You'll notice that when we're working inside a table, Word automatically takes you to the Table Tools ribbon. We have two of those. There's the Design ribbon and the Layout ribbon. And in the Design ribbon, you'll find a number of pre-formatted styles that you can use to doll up your display and format your table in a number of different ways. For the most part, you're going to be doing this manually though. So let's have a look at the Layout ribbon. Layout provides a number of very useful features that we can use to merge and split cells, to combine them in a different way. So for example, this heading I would like to move right across the page, covering the entire table. I would like to merge those three cells. In the center of the Layout ribbon is Merge Cells. Similarly, I may want to split this grated small pieces carrots into two columns. I can go to the cell, split cells, choose two columns, and here we are. Move small pieces into the second column. You can change the width of columns by grabbing a column and dragging the boundaries. Make them wider, make them smaller, move them around. If you have the ruler showing, remember, View, place a tick next to Ruler. If you have the ruler showing, then you can also drag the column layout headings around, which will allow you to resize your table and resize individual columns to fit your page. These little star-like symbols indicate a table cell. So even if you do not have grid lines that demarcate your table, you can still tell you're working with a table if it's got those little symbols. So for example, I can choose this table, select no borders. There we go, no border. As long as I have the Show Hidden Characters option enabled, then these little symbols will indicate where each cell is. And you can format cells individually. So if you want one to be centered, center, and you can change that layout both vertically and horizontally. Going back to the Layout tab, you'll find on the right-hand side of the screen the option to center text both horizontally and vertically, changing how you want the text to be laid out. And change the text direction if you should so feel. There are a limited range of options. It's not like you can rotate text arbitrarily inside the field, but you can lay out text vertically if you need a row heading or a column heading that is in a slightly different direction. And that covers creating the table and the basics of working with tables. When you're wanting to work with more precise definitions, then we have to go down a little menu. If you right click on your table, you'll find Table Properties. And here you can specify things like the background of cells or the entire table, the border of individual cells, the heights of individual rows, and the widths of individual columns. So, for example, I can specify that I want this table to be exactly 15 centimeters wide, and how I want it to be arranged on the page. I'm going to center this table on the page. I can also, going back to Table Properties, go to Row and say that I want these rows all to be exactly 1 centimeter high. There we go. The first row, going back into this, Table Properties, specify that one I'm going to make 1.5 centimeters high. Exactly means that regardless of the way the text flows inside that cell, it will be 1.5 centimeters high, even if the text gets cut off. At least means that the cell will grow if the text becomes too large or too long to fit into the table cell at that particular measurement. I forget that I have a decimal comma on the system. There we go. We're going to put borders back on just so you can see how this looks. All borders puts borders around individual cells as well as the entire table. Let's assume for the moment that I don't want this middle border to show when there's no comment, and I don't want that border to show as well. Going back to table properties, you will find borders and shading at the bottom of the table menu. You can go here and choose custom. We at the moment are set to use all, which means there are going to be borders around all the cells. If I go down to custom, I can now change this by cell. I'm going to be taking out the center border for these ones, which will take out the line in the middle of the cells. I could also, if I wanted to, change the left-hand border of these cells to use a different line style. Let me choose maybe slightly thicker line, which is going to be a double line, and we can make it an orangey sort of a color. I haven't tried to change the border for the entire table, only changes the section which I had selected. Can take the hidden characters off. Likewise, I can also very precisely specify column widths. Table properties, column, you will see here preferred width. I can make this one, say, 4 centimeters, and then move over to the next column. You will see that it selects the column that I'm busy working with. Previous column, it's the left row. Next column, the right-hand row. It hasn't selected the last row, even though there's no line showing. And I can specify a width for that one as well. And there's my adjustment. You can also turn off borders. This is a very important thing. For example, in this heading, which maybe I want centered, I don't want the top borders around it. I would like it to appear visually as though it's hovering above the table, but I still want it to be part of the table text. Table properties, table borders and shading, and we're going to go to custom again, and I'm going to remove the borders from around that particular cell. Notice it says at the moment apply to table. I'm going to change that so it applies to cell. If I'd left it on table, I would have removed the top, left and right borders from the entire table. And okay, there we are. Why not give this a background? Back to borders and shading. Borders and shading. Shading this time, and we can choose a suitably orange background. Again, notice at the moment it's set to apply to table. We're going to apply to cell. Okay, and there we are. I have a table with an orange background for the heading and some very specific measurements. Okay, this has been a very quick introduction to Word's tables. I do hope that you are going to find this useful. Please try the activities on the website.